EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a nightcap edition of Birds 365, coming to you live on a Tuesday night after day 15 of Eagles practice here with John McMullen, who was our eyes and ears down at practice today. Welcome into Birds 365, everybody. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday evening, sir?
Good. Eagles shifted the schedule a little bit, so tomorrow's going to be it for the training camp portion of practices, and so we're getting closer to the first perfect training camp in NFL history. And I say that tongue-in-cheek because obviously nobody has those statistics, but still no interceptions for Jalen Hurts through 15 practices.
Yeah, nothing still for Jalen Hurts. Good update there, Johnny Mac. So just for everybody that's following along, that will mean no night show on Thursday. So I had initially told everybody that our night shows this week would be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That means they will just be Tuesday and Wednesday for the night show. So Thursday we'll be back in our normal programming on the morning show, and Friday as well. So I want to thank everybody. Take this moment, by the way, to thank everybody for being here tonight on this nighttime edition. Sometimes I like the nighttime shows, Johnny Mac, kind of simmer down, see what happened at the day, and then we get it from you live. What were your overall reactions, and what did you see today from practice number 15, the sights and sounds?
I called it AJ Day, big AJ Day, which is kind of like an evergreen tweet or evergreen statement, pretty much dominates every day. But today amped it up a little bit, had a deep pass where he beat Quinyon Mitchell and punted the ball. That's the only thing he didn't do well. He shanked the punt as the celebration after about a 45-yard touchdown, I would say, with Quinyon Mitchell.
I think the Eagles posted it out, the shanked punt, John.
Yeah, he shanked the punt.
Yeah.
But dominant. Had his best play was one-on-one against Darius Slay. Back shoulder throw, left-handed, off-handed catch, one-handed, to the point Slay just went up to him and shook his hand essentially and said, "Well done." And then just the intermediate stuff over the middle, uncoverable. I mean, of all the things we talked about last year, the fact that the Eagles didn't go to that when they needed it may be the weirdest trajectory of all for that offense. Because, I mean, that is easy money, taking candy from a baby. Nobody can deal with him. Nobody's been able to deal with him on this defense the entire camp. And it was just AJ Day is how I described it. I usually get a couple sort of leads, but this was all AJ Brown. Devontae had a great day too, but AJ was so good. It was really something to see.
How is it different, John, in terms of them working the ball to him in the middle of the field? Great to hear he had another good practice, but seems to be the usual at this point where AJ just dominates. But, what looks different to you from how they're getting is it simple as an AJ slant and they're using the middle of the field?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they call it a bang 8 route, which, it's a slant. And his body's so big, and he's, even when he's not open, he's open, that type of thing. So as long as you have confidence to throw the football over the middle of the field, it's going to be there for you. And it's probably, the one mainstay, I would say. And the ironic thing, I talk about it all the time, while the Eagles were bottom 5 throwing the football over the middle of the field, they were top 5 in efficacy when doing it. In other words, they didn't do it a lot, but when they did do it, they were very successful. And that has mostly to do with AJ Brown, but also Devontae and the fact that they're using him a lot more in the slot. It looks like they're going to be doing that this year. So that is something I think Eagles fans will be very excited by, because that can create some interesting matchups. And yeah, those two are just, I got that one right. I remember telling Jody that basically the year they teamed up, it's the best wide receiver duo from a talent perspective the Eagles have ever had. And you can go back to Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin. People want to go back to Harold and Mike Quick, although that was the end of Harold's career. The beginning of Mike's really didn't overlap. They've already proven they're by far the best tandem the Eagles have ever had. And it's something to see every day, because they are arguably, Ed and I do the top 25 Eagles pure football players. AJ was unanimous as number 1 this year. Devontae ended up number 3. Lane was number 2. You could argue they're 1, 2. Lane, Lane's still great. And you see when he's not at practice, like he wasn't at practice. In team drills, they gave him a Veterans Day on Sunday. It's a flipping disaster when he's not out there. So he's still very good. But you can make a strong argument that the 2 best players on this team are A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith.
The crazy times here in Philadelphia as the receivers, as John points out. They were 1 and 3. By the way, I think that was the correct rating, at least where we are right now, is Lane, to have Lane at number 2. But pretty impressive that we have receivers that are that good. John, I'm going to get into the injuries. We're going to dive into everybody. Don't worry, everybody. We'll talk about Saquon. We'll talk about Bryce Huff. We'll talk Nakobe Dean. We'll get all the guys that everybody wants to hear the updates from. Before I do that, I want to do injuries, but just one follow-up to the A.J. Brown commentary. Who predominantly covers him at practice? I know the deep ball, he had Quinion on him, and then the one-handed catch, he had Slay. Is it kind of a revolving door for who covers him?
Yeah, I mean, he moves all over, so he'll play even more so. He can play all 3 receiver positions, X, Z, flex, and Kellen Moore is more apt to do that than they have been previously. So he moves around. Everybody gets a chance to get beaten, and generally everybody gets beaten. So it's an equal opportunity thing from the DB's perspective. But yeah, as Jonathan Gannon would say, that's tough duty if you're a
equal opportunity to get burnt.
Yeah.
John, some injuries today at practice. Maybe nothing serious, but let's get the injury update, at least what you know right now on our important guy here. A lot of them, but namely the ones today. Saquon Barkley goes out with his first training camp injury. I don't know how serious it was. What did you see from Barkley today?
Yeah, I don't think it's too serious. He sat out probably the last 3 team periods, and he was off to the side working with trainers. They were massaging his lower back. But he didn't leave the field, and after practice, he was signing autographs for the fans that were there. So I don't, if there was any doubt, any concern, he wouldn't have been doing that. So I don't think it's too serious. Probably just one of those things. And he should be fine.
Was there anything visible in the play when he went down, or
no,
just like a tweak? Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't on a play. He just sort of walked off and during the special teams drill, and started working with the trainers and then never came back in. And then Dallas Goedert's worked in individuals, but didn't work in team drills. Didn't see anything noticeable there. That might just be a veteran sort of pitch count day as well for him. Trevor Keegan is the one who got noticeably injured. He was limping, looked to be in a decent amount of pain, and he left practice and didn't return. So that's the one we'll keep an eye on tomorrow. Trevor Keegan, and he happened. Kellen Moore happened to mention him in a positive way. this morning in his press conference and said, you don't notice him that much, and that's a good thing, certainly for a rookie offensive lineman, because he's not making a lot of mistakes and looks like he's got some real potential down the road to be something. So that's an injury we'll keep an eye on. But don't think Saquon's serious at all. Don't think Dallas is serious at all. So, actually, the injury report as a whole was more positive for the first time.
Yeah, it looked a little shorter today.
Yeah, all the limited guys were back to a full go. So C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Grant Calcaterra, even Cooper DeJean, Oren Burks, even they were all the limited guys. And a bunch of guys returned. Joe Nada returned after missing one practice. E.J. Jenkins returned after missing one practice. Moro Ajomo returned after missing one practice, and Gabe Hall returned after missing one practice. So bunch of guys came back. Bunch of guys are off the limited list. The only ones left are Matt Hennessy and Tyler Steen, who did not practice on the offensive line. Albert O, a tight end, who's been out for a while with an abdomen injury. The two concussions at wide receiver, which are John Ross and Johnny Wilson, and Caden Stearns, who, hasn't been healthy since he got here. He's got a bit of a knee, and the Eagles knew there would be a ramp-up period with him. So, it's starting to lighten up on the injury reports.
Yeah, been lucky in that we haven't had anything serious, so everybody is still coming back. It'll be interesting to see. You just mentioned Caden Stearns. I'm interested where he might fit on this roster, or if he will fit on this roster. Just a tease for everybody. In hour number 2 today, we will look at the 53-man roster and where we are as of August 20th. It will not be John's final prediction for the 53-man. He will do that after the preseason game. It's normally a competition, for those who don't know. With the beat reporters, they all kind of pick a winner based on who had the most correct on the 53-man roster. So it won't be the final prediction, but it will be our prediction through practice number 15. We'll do that in hour number 2 today. Johnny Mac, let's run through it now. The practice of the day, you kind of gave it a good recap as the A.J. Brown day. What else stood out on the offensive side of the ball today? Jalen Hurts streak continues. What else did you see at practice today?
Yeah, I mean, Jalen continues to play pretty well. It wasn't all offense, though. It was, the defensive front is still getting a pretty decent pass rush. I would say the continued struggles of the second and third team has been pretty consistent now. So, the linebacker rotation is just insane at this point to be this late. Boy, if anything, Vic's amping that up, maybe he's playing the competitive advantage card. Maybe he isn't, but they started where they always start, and that continues to be Devin White and Zach Bond. But you saw Devin White and Nakobe Dean together. You saw Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean together. You saw Nakobe and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. You saw Devin and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Every combination possible is being thrown out there and looked at as they try to figure out that linebacker position. So that continues to be interesting. A lot of people made a big deal about Quinyon starting outside, but I mean, that's been the case for a while now. If they only have 2 linebackers on the field, 2 cornerbacks on the field, he's the starter with Darius Slay. And then when they go to nickel, he kicks inside, and Isaiah Rodgers has been coming in. That was the case today. The only difference was they usually start in nickel, and they didn't start nickel today. So they only had 2 corners on the field, and that's why Mitchell was outside. Ringo then kind of rotates in for Rodgers at times. And ultimately, I will say it was not a good day for Cooper DeJean. So, there's plenty of time August 20th to September 6th, so we're talking 17
Yep.
days. There's plenty of time to get him ramped up, and I know a lot of people think ultimately Green Bay is going to see Cooper in the slot and Quinyon Mitchell outside. I've always said, and clearly Vic has said, verbalized it on a number of occasions, he'd prefer to play Quinyon outside, but he wants to get his best trio on the field. And a little bit of pause with Cooper DeJean today because Britton Covey was schooling him in one-on-ones, and Devontae Smith was also having his way, which is really difficult work for Cooper.
Yeah, but if you want him to play in week 1, you better get him up against Devontae Smith. That'll teach him real quick.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people, like he barely played. Like people know that about Quinyon. He barely played inside at Iowa. He was an outside corner 90% of the time. So
yeah,
similar type of situation. And this is the first time you kind of saw it. He hasn't been out there much, but he looked right away, all right, this guy's pretty good. And today took a little bit of a step back, I would say, especially in one-on-ones when you really have to lock down. He's not used to those small, quick guys who can create that separation. And we'll see how that shakes out. But still, overall, much better group at cornerback, much more talented. But I say it all the time. That doesn't mean, and Britton talked about this after practice, doesn't mean you're not going to have hiccups. Everybody has hiccups and everybody has struggles and as young defensive backs in this league.
Good stuff, John. And we'll stay on the defense. I was going to start with the offense there, but you got into that defensive groupings. What the linebacker, the revolving door at the linebacker just continues to revolve, Johnny Mac. Did any one player, did anybody stand out today? Did Nakobe Dean continue his streak of good practices? What did you see from the linebackers today on the field?
Nothing splashy like it has been, but nothing terrible either. So I think all of them have made decent cases for themselves. From my perspective, Nakobe has clearly been the best since he's kind of, gotten his feet, no pun intended, I guess, but under him coming back from the 2 foot injuries. And then the other guys, I've been saying it for a while. It's kind of like, all right, pick one. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much difference between if you're going to go with Devin White or you're going to go with Zach Bond, and maybe a piecemeal it. Maybe Vic did unveil sort of a pass rushing look where Zach Bond was the linebacker and he used an extra edge player, Patrick Johnson, which was interesting. And I hadn't seen that before. So he's even breaking out new tandems and new sort of theories if you just want to go pure pass rush, I guess. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's going to be Devin White and Nakobe Dean, but we shall see.
Yeah, we will see. Nobody stood out though from a play wise. It was just more about the rotation today.
Yeah, more about the rotation. Yeah. Like on Sunday, that everybody had pass breakups. They were making plays all over the field. Nakobe made plays in the run game. He made plays. He made plays in the pass game and the coverage aspect of it. He made plays as a blitzer. Nothing splashy like that. Probably the biggest play in the backfield was from Quinyon Mitchell, interestingly, in the slot, who got we got Saquon Barkley in the backfield when they used an unbalanced look with Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata on the same side, and they tried a little sweep to Barkley, and Mitchell was able to shoot right through. Typically, I thought, when I was watching the play, I thought it was one of the linebackers, and it was actually Quinyon Mitchell.
Good stuff there from Johnny Mac. I have a super chat, John, on Cooper DeJean. I want to hit on it. I don't know if you're going to like it very much, Johnny Mac. Let's see. Big Marshall. What's up, Big Marsh? Appreciate you being here. He says Cooper DeJean is not a corner. He is a safety. Johnny Mac, what's your take on that?
Well, he's never played safety. He's never taken one rep at safety in Philadelphia. A lot of people
did at Iowa either, did he?
He played a little bit, probably, they called it the star position, but 90+% of the time he was an outside corner. The Eagles scouted him as an outside corner. A lot of people project him inside because of his football IQ, and they don't think, to be blunt, a white cornerback can play outside. But his athleticism is off the charts. Yeah, I mean, until he takes a rep at safety, I can't say he's going to be a safety. He's not taking one rep at safety, not one. And Vic was talking about that the other day. And now the time is even more limited. So, they're going to start him in the slot. They're going to play him outside as well. And when you get down to 53 on Tuesday, a week from today, then when that's when the cross training really starts. Because then right now you got 90 guys. Everybody's got a backup. When you get down to 53, bunch of guys have to play different positions. Backup offensive lineman, everybody knows you need to have versatility. Vic was talking about it with the nose tackles. In theory, you'd like to have PJ Mustipher to be the backup nose tackle, but you can't just keep a backup nose tackle. That he's got to play 4-eye technique. He's got to play 3 technique. He might have to play 5 technique. You got to play a bunch of different things. Same things with defensive backs. Avonte Maddox wasn't a safety when he was a rookie, but they had a bunch of injuries and they were forced to play him there. And that kind of stuff will happen. And sometimes you even have to throw somebody into the deep end of the pool. But as far as he's a safety, well, if he was a safety, they would give him reps at safety. And he hasn't taken rep 1 at safety.
Yeah, so we'll see what they end up doing with him. I know everybody talked about the versatility of him when he was drafted. Big Marsh, appreciate the super chat, man. We'll see what they end up doing with Cooper DeJean. I would side that I think he's going to be a corner. I think they drafted him to be a corner. I think they want him to be a corner. It's a more valuable position, especially in the eyes of the Eagles. So we'll see what they end up doing there. John, let's go to that defensive line today. What did you see from the D line today at practice? As a whole, go ahead. What did you see from the D line?
Yeah, the good performance, I would say, from the defensive front as a whole. Carter makes plays every day. It's just a matter of, today was in the backfield on a run. He typically gets 1 or 2 of those a day. There were some decent pass rush as well, which I think has been pretty consistent over the past couple of days, maybe even the past week plus or so. I think you've seen a real uptick in pass rush. Part of that has been some of the issues on the offensive line as well. You have to be fair about that, injuries and such. But so mostly positive. I think you saw, and you're continuing to see some good pass rush, pretty consistent pass rush from the guys up front. And that's a good thing because that defensive front remains the strength of the Eagles defense. And it starts with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. And they've both been playing pretty well, I would say.
How'd Bryce Huff look today?
Yeah, Bryce was fine. He's been picking it up a little bit more recently. Now Lane was back, but he was on a pitch count, so he didn't take all the first team reps. Fred Johnson was in there, and I've been saying it for a while. When Fred's in there, he shows up a little bit more. Yeah. And when Lane's in there, he gets shut down. But who cares? He's not playing against Lane. Hassan Reddick did the same thing happened to Hassan Reddick I've said it numerous times on
A
the
lot of people
show.
get shut down by Lane Johnson.
Yeah.
Michael Parsons got shut down by Lane Johnson.
Yeah, and I asked a bunch of guys, I said, looking back, I don't remember Hassan Reddick really flashing at practice. And most of the guys agreed with me. And that's because he was mainly going against Lane Johnson. And when the regular season came, magically Hassan Reddick became Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. Good stuff on the defensive line. John, one update on another guy on that defensive line. How's Jalix Hunt looked? We had a couple splashes of him in camp early. Kind of seemed like he was more further along in his development than expected. What have you seen from him recently?
Yeah, I think that's a good word to describe Jalix. Yeah, every once in a while, you'll see a little bit of a splash, and because he can, he's athletic and he can go straight ahead, and if he clicks on a particular rep, it can look pretty impressive, but probably the consistency is not there from rep to rep. And sort of what Vic has said, when he gives out the backhanded compliments, he said, well, I thought he played better than I thought he would, is basically what Vic said in the New England game. So look, he's the fifth edge rusher right now. Maybe the sixth, you can argue from a real world perspective. And by that, I mean, if they needed a fifth to really play because of an injury, they get bumped up. It'd probably be Patrick Johnson before him. But while I say that, if you look at what Bryce Hupp did with the Jets last year as sort of a one-trick pony, maybe he could be that if you need it. Now, they're not going to plan for it, but if you're forced into it, guys get hurt, maybe he could do that. But he as far as being a well-rounded player, and that snap-to-snap consistency, he's going to need some time, I would say.
Let's move into that offensive side of the ball. Johnny Mack at practice today. Just going to recap up the rest of practice here, everybody. Then I got another good segment planned after this. And then in hour number 2, we're going to be doing John's initial 53-man roster projection, edition number 1, I guess you could call it, as that will not be his final projection or final prediction for the 53-man roster. John, offense today, I know we already talked Jalen. We already talked AJ. What did you see from the rest of that offensive line? How'd the offensive line from that offense? How'd the offensive line look today? Wide receiver 3. What did you see from the offense out there?
Well, again, a little bit of an upheaval. You even saw Nick Gates getting first team right guard reps next to Fred Johnson at times because they had both Lane and Mekhi Becton on a pitch count. So there's been a little bit of sloppiness, I would say, muddiness, whatever you want to call it, that sort of hurts some of the reps because the top guys aren't out there at particular times. So I think that's been the major issue. Wrote about reps at Sports Illustrated the other day, and by that I mean, when I was talking to a personnel guy, his description was you got to evaluate the rep before you can evaluate the player. And by that he meant, who's out there, what's going on? Is it the same group? Is it Lane? Is it Mekhi, or is it Fred and Nick, for instance? All right, different rep. So you don't evaluate it the same way. So that is what I think has been going on with the offensive line. When Lane Johnson's out there, Cam Jurgens out there, Landon Dickerson's out there, Jordan Mailata's out there, it's very good. When 1 or 2 is not, it tends to get a lot shakier a little bit quickly. And that's sort of common sense, but that's where they are when it comes to the offensive line.
And still right guard position, Mekhi Becton still in the driver's seat there?
Oh, yeah. Barring, if he's out there, if he's healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's won that job. That job's over. there's no competition at right guard. Now I'm a little bit concerned with his knee.
Yeah, I am too. I mean,
It's a
he had a
big
lot of
dude.
injuries in New York, man.
Yeah, it's a big dude with an injury history, and he's got this big bulky brace on that he claims isn't a big deal, but he keeps limping on the leg with the big bulky brace. So, do the math. And Tyler Steen's not even healthy again. He missed practice again with the ankle. So he probably came back too quickly. And, without both of them, they tried Brett Toth, and now it was Nick Gates. So you don't want to get down to Brett and Nick. I will say that. But even that, when I say it, Nick Gates has started a lot of games in this league. You probably persevere as long as you have the 4 other guys.
Yeah, it does stink that Trevor Keegan went down to that. He seems to have been coming on recently at camp and then the preseason games, and I don't know how bad his injury is, but he did go down today. You think that'll be a longer term thing or a couple practice thing, or was it just kind of
no way of knowing yet. He was in pretty significant pain. We'll get a better indication tomorrow morning. But as far as Trevor, he hasn't started cross training yet, though. He had not taken one snap at right guard. It's all been left guard as Landon's backup pretty much, and occasional first team rep when Landon was getting a couple plays off here and there, but they have not given him any right guard reps yet. And again, that might change as you get down to the 53. But hey, first you got to see if he's healthy. But Nick Gates has started 39 NFL games. So, it's one of those things. I always go back to 2017 with Stephen Wisniewski and Chance Warmack. They wanted Isaac Seumalo to win the job. He struggled early, and they won the Super Bowl with Wiz. So, when you have 4 other really good offensive linemen, you can persevere with the 5th.
Yeah, so we'll see how that plays out. Good stuff, John, on the recap. Today we hit the injuries, we hit offense, we hit defense. What'd you take away from the press conferences today, Johnny Mac? Anything?
There's a little bit of interesting. I mean, I've talked about it since the Eagles set up this coaching staff, but there certainly seems to be 2 distinct fiefdoms with the Eagles. Vic Fangio's in charge of the defense. Kellen Moore's in charge of the offense. And I don't know. Seems like it's almost the separation of church and state. It's like, and I'm as a matter of fact, I just wrote about that today. It's like if you go back to Vic on Sunday, every day, I forget what day it is at this time of year, but so Vic spoke on Sunday, and we're all sitting there. And the first question, we're all sitting there. That was coming off the Saturday practice where they were just blitzing the what out of the Eagles offense, which is strange from Vic's history. And so a bunch of us were saying, well, maybe the Eagles offense needed work on it. Maybe they're trying to get the offense prepared. And that was the first question Vic got the next morning was, the blitzing, what's the deal? Is that a byproduct of needing to work on something versus the offense needing it? And he said, and I quote, there was no consideration for the offense, which again, I chuckled when he said it. It was just time that we installed some stuff. And yesterday we worked on it. We installed it prior to yesterday's practice, which was Saturday, and worked on it and called it a few times. And then the follow-up was, there was never a conversation with Kellen Moore or Nick Sirianni saying, we need to work more on this because it's something that we need. And he said, no, not beforehand. Kellen did tell me afterwards that it was good for them to see that. They need that. And today was Kellen Moore's turn. And I asked him, that was the second question. I asked him, how does that connection work with you and Vic? Are there ever times, Vic said, there was no consideration for the offense when he was installing? Do you guys ever consider each other? Like, I've got to work on this or Vic's got to work on that. And Kellen said, he's a little bit more political, but bottom line is, he said, they got enough volume on defense. I think we have enough volume on offense that over the course of training camp, you're going to be exposed to a lot of different types of football. So that's the beauty of it. Doug Peterson used to have something called the 10-10-10 practice, which Andy Reid,
right.
It's an Andy Reid thing. And what that was 10 plays for the offense, 10 plays for the defense, and then special teams. And you rotate that for the entire practice. It was essentially, and the Eagles would have to put out information. They would put out little placards to explain to media what 10-10-10 practices were, because you would have people reporting, oh, Carson Wentz threw an interception, and they're acting as a scout team for the defense. Because that practice was specifically so the offense would service the defense and vice versa. The Eagles don't have that anymore. And you got two guys working on their little fiefdoms, and I don't like the setup. I don't like it. I've said that from day one.
You haven't liked it for a long time, John. You've been saying that all summer. We will see how it shakes out. John, one other guy, I feel I messed this up not asking about this guy when we did our recap before we get to our first commercial break here. Anais Smith, John, did he have his best day of camp today?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. He was another guy who's kind of working in the slots. Anais finally has calmed down, I think, settled down. Ton of drops. The drops have stopped. Seems to be getting his feet under him. A little bit of a confidence back. Might be too late. We will see. The good part is Howie does not want to cut him. I can guarantee you that. He does not want to cut his draft picks.
Yeah, he's going to be given every chance to make this team.
Yeah. And I go back to Shelton Gibson, who probably had an even worse camp than Anais, and they kept him, at least in the short term. So, he might be doing enough now to where they'll carry him on the roster, because he can do some different things as well. Backup punt returner, backup kickoff returner. So he's got some value there. I could see Howie talking himself into it. But yeah, he's doing better. And it's good to see. Maybe CJ calling him out in front of the whole team. Maybe it worked. You don't know how that stuff works with different players. I don't know if you saw the Tua stuff today.
Yeah, absolutely.
About Brian Flores being hard on him. I mean, some guys take to that, some guys don't. And
I think that was that was an extreme measure, I think, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I don't know what went on there. I know it was a big deal today.
Yeah.
In the case here, maybe CJ calling him out in front of the team, maybe it lit a fire under him. Other guys would shrink. Maybe he's stepping up. I don't know if that's the case, but he's playing better.
Yeah, well,
that's a positive thing.
That's definitely a positive thing. So good stuff from Anais Smith. Good stuff from practice today. John, who would get the win? Who would you give the win today at practice?
Well, I called it AJ Day, so I'm going offense. I
Yeah, you
mean,
got to go offense if you call it
yeah,
AJ.
I mean, yeah, I mean, consistency from play to play, I think was close. But when you got that kind of performance from one particular offensive player, and Devontae was close as well. Yeah, I got to give it to the offense.
Good stuff there. And then player of the day, I already know the answer, but
Well, AJ Day. Yeah.
Good stuff there. So AJ Brown gets gets the player of the day, and offense wins the day today, but a good day all around. We're going to get to our first commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about wide receiver 3 with Johnny Mack. Is there any options out there that we can bring in? John says he thinks that might be the one spot they'll go outside the locker room and bring somebody in here in late August. So we will talk about that next. And then in hour number 2, everybody, our initial 53-man roster projections. Our projections part 1, we can or edition number 1, we'll call it. So stay tuned. A lot to come here on Birds 365 on our nightcap edition. Still an hour 15 to play. Hit that like button, everybody. If you're enjoying the show, we'll be back in 3 minutes.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up. And go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, a nightcap edition here on this Tuesday. John, real quick, for the people just checking in, what is the update on the Eagles practice? I know they canceled or changed their schedule around this week. What's the newest? What's the latest from the Eagles on their practice schedule this week?
They're going to have a full practice tomorrow. Nick Sirianni will talk before. Michael Clay was originally going to talk before because they were going to practice Wednesday and Thursday. Nick was going to talk Thursday. So Michael's now going to talk after practice, so they're going to have Nick before, Michael after. Thursday is going to be a walkthrough now. Friday, a walkthrough as well. So they're going to have 2 walkthroughs, which are unfortunately closed to the media. Saturday's final preseason game against Minnesota. And then the players will be off Sunday. And Tuesday's cut down day. So they're not going to practice before cut down day. And make all those guys come in and who they do cut. But that's the schedule this week. So tomorrow will be, unless something changes, and it's not going to change, the last fully open practice that reporters can see for the entire year. We'll be there for the first 20-30 minutes of practice each day, but then we get kicked out when team drills start. That's when I think Big will start making his decisions.
Yeah, but no, I think you're right on that. Is that how it is, by the way, across the league, that during the year everybody gets kicked out after 20-30 minutes?
Yeah. Now I if anybody does it differently, I don't know. It didn't used to be like that many years ago. We used to watch practices all the time. Andy would have been the last coach here. I wasn't here at the time, but yeah, it used to be all over the league. Practices would be open, but now got a new breed of coach. And it's ironic because I don't know if you saw Tom Brady at that Fanatics Fest. He's getting a lot of crap, as he typically does. I love when people, by the way, criticize Tom Brady for telling you about quarterback play. But anyway, he talked about the dumbing down of the position and the game itself, which is 100% true. I mean, I don't know how anyone could argue that. I find it ironic, but though with coaches, they all run the same bullshit and they act like they have the, cure to cancer. And, there's certain guys, Kyle, obviously. But as far as the college spread stuff, it's all the same. You're all running the same crap. And that's what Tom was saying. It's like, and part of that is because they have to. So from that standpoint is you don't have enough time to prepare like you used to. So you're trying to get people up to speed. How do you get people up to speed to play at an acceptable level? Well, you scale things back. And that's what's happened in the NFL. So I don't even know why anyone would argue that, other than they want to argue it for argument's sake.
Good stuff, John. Let's move on. Let's move into that wide receiver 3 position. You still think they might go outside that locker room and pick somebody up, or what?
Yeah, but I said it pretty consistently. To me, it's not about the third wide receiver and 11 personnel. It's about the backup for Devontae and AJ in case one of those guys gets a sprained ankle and you need somebody to play 70 snaps. Then they don't have that player on the roster right now. And if they want to find him, they're probably going to have to go outside the organization. But I don't think it's about finding a wide receiver 3 to get, more production. That's going to be minimal from a traffic standpoint. You got AJ's number 1, Devontae's number 2, Dallas is number 3, Saquon's number 4, probably Grant Calcaterra is going to be number 5. And, right now that wide receiver 3 would be number 6, I would say. And you could argue Kenny Gainwell is going to be above it as well. And as Doug Peterson once famously said, you're the 6th freaking option, man. We're not designing plays for you.
Well, there's a lot of rumors, that float around, and most of them are BS. And we talk about that all the time. I almost don't even want to bring them up to you. But is there any player that you think would be a good fit on this roster. I mean, you just talked about it. It's a sixth option, but you want somebody that can kind of back up, AJ and Devontae.
Well, I think the
John
backup
Mechie's
part,
a name that people throw
I
out,
mean,
and Jan Dotson from the Commanders. Apparently, he might get released. I don't know how true that is, but is there any guy out there that you think would be a good fit or that might be, viable to make?
Well,
a trade
again,
for?
I think people are hyper focused on the third part of the third receiver part of it, and I think that's off base, because if you're bringing it, you want John Mechie to come in because people remember he's a great player in college, or Dotson is a great player in college. All right, they're not going to be big time role players here, at big time as a role player here. So, are they going to be happy with it? Again, I think you need a backup outside receiver. The perfect fit to me would be, I've been talking about for a while, is, and I don't know if he has anything left, is Corey Davis, who's out, you can get for nothing. And he's an outside receiver, still young, retired too soon, didn't like it. I don't know if he's got anything left. They tried it with John Ross. That to me would make some sense. Everybody looks at Houston because they have depth. They have so much depth at wide receiver.
Yeah, they're loaded.
Yeah, the problem is, I'm hyper focused on the Eagles every day. So I don't know what's going on in Houston, but if they want to get rid of Noah Brown or John Mechie, as you mentioned, yeah, they could fit in as that potential backup. A lot of people bring up Treylon Burks because evidently Tennessee's not happy with him. And the people see, oh, Tennessee, first round pick, A.J. Brown. I think that's the correlation there. Some other guys, Cedric Wilson, guys like that, they might all be upgrades. But you have to see who's available, who wants to move somebody, if somebody's going to get cut. And I think from the standpoint of who has the most depth, that's probably Houston, and that's why people look at Houston.
Yeah, and they actually have good receivers, down roster, so you could actually get probably a viable player. Yeah,
and can they keep them all? But at the same time, if you think you have a viable player, you're not going to give them away either. So from that standpoint, similar to what Howie's doing with James Bradbury, and they're young. So, if you look at it, and that they have a very good GM and a very smart GM. So, if Howie's not giving away James Bradbury, Nick Caserio is probably not giving away John Mechie for nothing.
Yep, no doubt about it. John, let's say they don't go outside the room. How do you think it would play out? I mean, I think for wide receiver 3, it would be that committee approach where maybe they would go to a different guy, but let's just play worst case scenario. If something did happen, what would they do? Would they put Johnny Wilson on the outside? He's the only one I see that could, be that out. Could Paris Campbell play on the outside, or John?
Yeah, I think Paris Campbell would be the guy right now. If that were to happen and the Eagles don't add anything, and he certainly has the speed to do it. He's never been productive. He had one decent season in Indianapolis of his 4. And the big concern with me with Paris Campbell, it's sort of the inverse thing of Saquon. Everybody making excuses for Saquon with the Giants and why he didn't turn into the player everybody expected. Oh, it's because of the Giants are terrible supporting cast and yada, yada, yada. Well, Paris was on that terrible supporting cast and got benched, with no receivers. So that's a concern for me. And he's injury prone, and he got injury with the groin already. That part has to concern you. But I will say, when he has been out there, he's clearly the best one. But again, tallest short guy at the circus, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt about it. How has Covey looked? I mean, I think he was emerging. You said,
Britton deserves a chance, but he's a strict slot receiver, so he's not going to play outside. So
well,
Britton
let's just
deserves.
go into the realistic. Well, let's just go into where we are right now. AJ and Devontae are healthy, so you need just a wide receiver
Yeah,
3.
wide receiver 3. I think I advocate playing him. I mean, the guy gets unbelievable separation
Yeah,
on
he
a
was
on
making.
a.
You said he was making Cooper DeJean
Yeah,
skate all over the field
yeah, it
today.
was making Cooper look bad today. And he does it consistently from day to day. And so if you're just looking for that, now the problem is the Eagles want to use Devontae Smith in the slot a lot, and even AJ to a certain extent. And when that happens, you got to play outside. And that's where the Eagles want a more versatile player. And that's why Paris probably has the hand, the leg up. But if you, on a particular play, if you need a traditional slot receiver, I think Britton Covey is your best option for the Eagles. No doubt about that.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing there at that position. John, when hour number 2 rolls around, we're about 30 seconds away from hour number 2. We're going to hit another commercial break, and then we're going to do our initial 53-man roster projections. So we'll get into all that coming up here in a little bit on Birds 365. John, any other closing thoughts on just today's practice? What the takeaways from a bunch of people spoke? So just any takeaways that you felt we missed on today's practice?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. I'm trying to think if anything else missed. I'm glad you brought up Anias. I think that was a very positive development from his perspective, which has been a pretty difficult struggle for him, really dating back to the spring when he wasn't completely healthy. The linebackers and the safeties, which we'll talk about a little bit in the roster. I think the backup quarterback battle, I think is interesting to people. Kenny Pickett was back, sort of entrenched with the second team. Not that he's playing that well, but Tanner McKee's coming off a really poor practice. And I think when I talk about those reps, evaluate the reps before you evaluate the players. The backup offensive linemen, because of the things going on, have been kicked up to a little bit higher. So the reps get sort of worse and worse. The Eagles have more depth on the defensive front. And those guys tend to play more prepared to play. And then you get some of those poor reps, so to speak. And I would say Jacob Harris is one guy that a lot of people don't talk about, but he's really good special teams player. And he can run. So when you talk, and he's 6'5". So when you talk about in-house candidates, maybe dark horses to be a receiver, an outside receiver, Jacob Harris might be your best bet unless you go outside.
Yeah, I saw another beat reporter tweet about him, and I think it was Elliott Shore Parks who just said he's legit. I mean, if he gets time to develop, he could be good. And you've been saying that about him, John, about Jacob Harris.
Yeah, he made a really good catch on Eli Ricks in one-on-ones today that I think people got pretty excited about. He's 6'5", and he went up and leaped to get it. So you can see that catching radius. I don't think he played that well in New England, so that kind of hurt him. I think he took a step back there. But overall, he's been pretty good since he got back from a hamstring injury. And he, like I said, he's 6'5", and he can run. Ran a 4.39 coming out. So
does he get separation? How are his fundamentals as a receiver? I mean, that's a big boy for a receiver.
Yeah. But typically, like, Johnny Wilson's a big boy and he runs like a big boy. Jacob's a big boy and he runs like a small guy. So I think that's the difference. And no, I mean, obviously,
you like Jacob Harris more than you like Johnny Wilson.
Well, I think he's more prepared to play right now. But, remember, JAKIB was one of those guys, one of those future guys that Howie was touting up back in the spring. So when you say, but he's he was a 4th round pick, I believe. So when it's not like he's some guy off the street with no, Johnny was a 6th round pick. He was a 4th round pick, and he's played a little bit with the Rams. He's always been a good special teams player. He's a much better athlete than Johnny Wilson. As I said, he ran a 4.39. His vertical was over 40 inches. So that's what he kind of showed off today when he leaped up to get the ball over Eli Ricks. He's more physically gifted. He's got more experience. If you needed somebody to play tomorrow, like 70 snaps, what I'm talking about, yeah, he's more prepared to play. And Johnny's got a concussion. I'm not talking about the concussion. I'm talking without, if Johnny was healthy, I would say JAKIB is more prepared to play. But that's not an insult to as a rookie. But Johnny's going to get deference because he's an Eagles draft pick.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's get to our next commercial break, John. And then after the break, we will have our initial 53-man roster projection. We will run through each pick or each position, I guess you could say, each position group, and we'll get how many players that we think are going to be there and who they might be. Keep in mind, just the initial one here, this will not be John's final prediction. They do one with all the beat reporters where they kind of put them all in. And John, you won not last year, but 2 years ago, right? You won the beat reporter?
It was it's like 5 years ago now.
Oh, I thought you won recently. I thought you won during the Birds 365 era.
Well, maybe first year. It was me. Then it was Bo won 3 years in a row. I have a conspiracy theory about that.
Yeah, is he getting inside info? Is that what it is?
And then Jimmy won, Jimmy Kempski, and then last year Andrew Jacheco. So it's been a while. Yeah, but I finished in second like 3 times, tied for second.
What's the Bo Wolf conspiracy theory? Let's hear it.
Well, Bo used to work for the Eagles, for those who don't know.
Yeah.
So Bo still has an immense number of friends in that building who might be going by Howie's office and looking in. That's my conspiracy.
I like it. I think that there's some merit to that conspiracy. I love a Johnny Mac conspiracy. By the way, Steve Ike asked, when's Bill C coming back? Yeah, so the problem is we normally get Bill C in on Tuesdays, but we're doing a night show, so we can't, he couldn't do it. So we'll get Bill up as soon as we're back to our regular scheduled programming. It has been a little bit of a different switch with us with the night show. We haven't had our normal guest on. So we'll get back to the normal though, and they'll all be back up for the season. So let's get to our next.
By the way, because since people are the way they are, I'm joking about Bo. He didn't cheat. He deserves his wins. But I like to poke him.
I'm going to head into my kitchen during the break and twirl up my tinfoil and put it on because I like that conspiracy theory. Bo, I'm not coming for you. I'm just wondering if you're colluding to get the win for beat reporter superiority. I think that might.
Well, he hasn't won the past 2 years, so that kind of ruins my conspiracy theory.
Yeah, maybe Howie learned or how he started locking the doors.
Maybe locked the door. Yeah, maybe locked the door. Andrew won last year. Our buddy Andrew.
Andrew's the best. Yeah, I love Andrew. We got to get him up soon. We'll get him up on the show soon. Thanks everybody for being here tonight on this nightcap edition. About 53 minutes left to go. We're going to take a commercial break, and then our 53-man roster projection is next here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up. And go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday nighttime edition, nightcap edition of Birds 365 here from 6 to 8 p.m. with John McMullen, our eyes and ears from Eagles practice today. About to give you guys our 53-man roster projection, so our first one at least. So thanks, everybody, for being here. Hit that like button. Johnny Mac, any notes, any things you got to add before we get into each position? Anything worth noting before we start our projections?
I do not think so. I think I've got it all down. I'm looking. I did talk to Tyler Hall. There was a lot of not Tyler Hall, Isaiah Rodgers. There was a thought that Isaiah Rodgers had changed his jersey, the 31.
Yeah, I think I saw that yesterday.
And I thought, he did not. He remains number 34. I had thought he was, paying deference to Tyler Hall, who got put on injured reserve, got hurt, and he was number 31. And I thought, well, then, he was back to 34. And I thought maybe because, the one day Lane was wearing, Lane was wearing Landon's jersey or vice versa? Sometimes they do that goofy stuff. And I thought, hey, maybe he's paying homage to Tyler Hall getting hurt. But no, he was just, he had his jersey, tucked up as players do, and it just looked like 31. And he was like, yeah, it was crazy. I thought I was wearing 31, but he's wearing 34 the whole time, and he's not changing.
Interesting.
So
yeah, I did see that.
Isaiah Rodgers is number 34 for all the number people. That's usually Jeff Kerr's beat, but I'll take it over for today.
Yeah, no, Jeff Kerr not with us right now, but Jeff, good stuff from Jeff. He's the one who put out that he thought Cooper DeJean didn't have a great day, and I was like, oh man, I trust Jeff.
He did not have a good day.
So he was correct on that. John, let's get into this 53. We'll start on offense. We'll go through the defense. We'll hit the special teams. Not much there, but whatever, for what it's worth, a couple guys.
No, well, that's a lock. The special teams.
Is it? Wait, we'll get there. We're not starting on special teams. We'll get there. Let's start with offense. Johnny Mac, quarterback. How many are they keeping, and who are they? I think we all know this
Well,
answer.
lock as well. They're keeping 3, and we all know the 3: Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee. For those who think Tanner McKee has a chance or should have a chance to be the backup, that is not the case. It will be Kenny Pickett. And that's pretty concrete. I would say the second most concrete position to those specialists, as I just alluded to, which is Jake Elliott, Braden Mann, Rick Lovato. They have no competition, so there's no other way to go.
Haven't the Eagles in the past, though, John, kind of played the game with Lovato?
Oh, they could play the game. They could play the roster game with Lovato. They have done it in the past. They could do that. He's vested. Obviously, he's been playing a long time, so he doesn't have to go through waivers. So, yeah, if they need an extra spot, they can play that game. I don't think they will, but they can play it. But we'll see how things shake out. I don't expect them to play it, but they have done it once in the past.
Got it. All right, so we got the quarterbacks done, 3 of them off, so we're down to 50 guys left. Hurts, Pickett, McKee. I think we can all agree on that one. Running back Johnny Mack. How many are they keeping, and who are they going to keep?
Yeah, I think they're only keeping 3, and obviously that's where the practice squad comes in. But Saquon, Kenny Gainwell, Will Shipley are secure, and I do not think they'll keep a 4th because they just need that roster spot for other positions. And that's where, Kendall Milton, Lou Nichols, Ty Davis Price have all had some moments. Nick seems to like Lou Nichols. I think Howie likes Kendall Milton. And we'll see if Ty Davis Price can force his way. They're certainly going to keep 1 on the practice squad. They might even keep 2. And then if you need a back, you can just elevate them to the 53 when you need them. But the lock candidates are definitely Saquon, Kenny Gainwell, Will Shipley, or 100%ers, as I'd like to call them.
I think they'll stick with 3 for that position. Just too many other. It's just a numbers game. I don't think they're going to keep 4 running backs, but we'll see what they end up doing. John, let's go to wide receiver. This one is one I think could get interesting based on how many you think they're going to keep. What's your initial gut feeling right now on the?
Well, yeah, this one's a tough one because I think, and I've been talking about it for a while. I think when you talk about day 3 picks and 2 day 3 receivers and how he doesn't want to cut his draft picks, that means you got to keep Johnny Wilson and Anais Smith. Yeah. And all of a sudden you got 2 players who probably aren't going to help you that much this year. But I think that's the way it's going to be. And I think he's going to keep 6 receivers at a position that might be their worst position from a depth standpoint. And I don't like it. To me, the guys who should make the team unquestionably are AJ, Devontae, and Britton Covey. And that's sort of dual roles with Britton. He's going to be the punt returner. So that's where he factors in. And I think you have Paris Campbell and Johnny Wilson and Anais Smith. And I don't like it, but that's the way I think they're going to go.
Yeah, I think they're going to go that route too. I guess John Ross is going to be the odd man out there.
He's got a concussion and it was always going to be difficult for him. Hasn't played since 2021.
Yeah, especially once they drafted 2 receivers.
Remember they can keep veterans on the practice squad now. So, John will probably be okay with that. And I could see him back on the practice squad as a veteran player. And then if you need a receiver, again, here's the thing with the practice. That's why you say, in theory, say Anais Smith and Johnny Wilson are ahead of John Ross. Well, if you needed somebody to play, again, when we talk about AJ Devontae sprained ankle scenario, John Ross might get elevated and play above those guys.
Right.
So that's how he can manipulate it. And to be honest, the more liberal roster rules, it's not as fun because you don't have to have as much, difficult decisions because you can make that decision. In the past, if you needed John Ross to be on the roster, you needed John Ross to be on the roster. Now you can put him on the practice squad. So why lose sleep over it?
Yeah, right. That changes things definitely. So that's 12 guys that we got, 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, and 6 wide receivers. John, let's go to the tight end. 41 spots left on our roster. Tight end. This is a tough one for me. Do you keep 2? Do you keep 3? What's your inclination here on what they're going to do at tight end?
I think they're going to keep 3. Then it starts hurting on the back end.
Yep.
But I do think they're going to keep 3, and obviously Dallas and Grant are locked in, and then it becomes EJ Jenkins to me.
It's got to be EJ if you're going 3, right?
Well, no, I still think they can get him on the practice squad, and they could go as low as 2, as you were alluding to, because I think they could do the same thing with CJ Uzama, as I said with John Ross.
Well, yeah, I just think that secondary is where they would prioritize that extra spot. And I don't, so.
Well, that's the thing. How many people are you going to keep in the secondary?
Right.
Are you going to keep 11? Or are you
yeah, right. 7 corners, 4 safeties. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm not going that deep because I don't think I'm counting Maddox as a safety, so to allude to where I'm going there.
Okay, well, we'll get there. So let's stay on tight end now. Yeah, my bad.
I mean, at least early. So, we'll see if I'm changing. But I would say CJ Uzama is the 3rd tight end and EJ Jenkins to the practice squad.
Okay. All right. We'll see what they end up doing there. Let's go to the offensive line, John. We'll start with the tackles. How many tackles are they going to keep?
Well, I tend to think of offensive line as,
All right, well, we can do it all as one if that's what you want to do. Yeah, that's fine.
And I'm probably going to keep. Boy, I want to keep Darian Kennard, but I don't know if you can, and maybe, if Trevor Keegan's injury is a little bit more, you don't want that to happen. But and I might even, I'm leaning towards keeping Dylan McMahon, again, draft pick, same type scenario. So
yeah, I think I would keep Keegan for sure, right? I mean, he showed some things.
Keegan. My only concern with Keegan is the injury. He got hurt today. So we'll see that. But if you're just talking about tackles, Lane, Jordan, obviously Fred Johnson are going to make the team. And I'd like to find a way to keep Darian Kennard. To do that, you probably have to cut Dylan McMahon. I don't think the Eagles will do that. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. But so right now, I have 9 offensive linemen. I have Lane, Jordan Mailata, Fred Johnson, and then inside I have Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickerson, Mackay back then. Remember, Mackay can also play tackle, so that helps. Tyler Steen can also play tackle, so that helps. And the rookies, Dylan McMahon and Keegan. So that's where and they have some versatility. But I think Kennard
does that leave Kennard out, that 9, right?
That leaves Kennard out, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he deserves to make the team if it were a pure meritocracy, but it's not. So, and they could probably get him on the practice squad. So I'm hand wringing for no reason, most likely.
Yeah, so we'll see what they end up doing there. That's an interesting breakdown, though. 9 offense. Is that about what they normally do? 9 offensive linemen?
They usually go a little bit heavier. They've gone 10, but I think what helps them is Becton and Steen can play tackle.
Right.
So
you have
if you're counting, obviously Becton's going to be a starter at right guard, but he's more of a tackle than a guard.
Right, and if Becton's playing guard, that makes Steen your swing tackle, or Fred Johnson, but a backup tackle.
Yeah, and look, if Lane Johnson gets hurt, Becton might go out and play there. Maybe not in game, but if he's hurt for a significant period of time,
right,
they might move Becton out there and play Steen at guard.
Yeah, that makes that makes more sense. Right. All right, so 9 offensive linemen, 6 receivers, 3 quarterbacks, and 3 running backs. We are up to, and 3 tight ends. So we are up to what would that be? 12, 15, that's 24. So 24 guys. We got 29 guys left to roster, John, as we move in to the defensive side of the ball. Seems like we're on a good pace. Let's start with that defensive line, Johnny Mac. We'll go offensive line into the defensive line. What do you see from the defensive line? How many guys are going to keep there? That might be a heavy unit.
Yeah, I mean, they're deep on the.
We could split it into tackles and edges if you want.
Yeah, I mean, interior guys versus edges. The interior guys are Carter, Davis, Milton Williams, Marlon T, and Morrow Ajomo.
And you think Marlon and Morrow are definites?
I wouldn't put them. I put Morrow as a definite. Marlon.
Oh, really?
Quite. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I don't think Vic likes Tui Pelotu as much as he likes Ajomo, but I think you need a backup nose tackle. He's talking about playing Milton Williams in backup. You don't want to do that. You're screwing with Milton out of position, who's a very good player. So I think ultimately it's those 5 guys. And then the edge rushers, I think you're going deep as well, because Patrick Johnson's got to make this team. And in many ways, like, he would be the 5th edge rusher, but you have to keep Hunt. So it's another one of those things. So it's Bryce Hupp, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith, BG. Really, BG would be ahead of Nolan Smith. Jalix Hunt, Patrick Johnson. So I'm going very heavy with defensive front players.
So you got 6 edges and 5 defensive tackles, right?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, right. 6 edges, 6 edges and 5 defensive tackles. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I asked you a month ago, you think Patrick Johnson would make this team, you probably would have said no. Is that right?
Yeah, I would have said no.
Yeah, but he's had a strong summer.
He's had a very strong summer. He one of those guys who really remade his body in the offseason, so he's really been working hard. And like I said, if somebody gets hurt, I don't think it would be Jalix Hunt as next man up. I think it would be Patrick Johnson.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, I think he has made this football team.
Yeah, so that's 11. That's 11 on the defensive line there. We were down at 29, so now we got 18 to go. We're going to move into linebackers, cornerbacks, safeties. Linebacker, Johnny Mac, what do you see? How many are they keeping? This is a tough one. What do you think?
Well, I don't think this is tough. I think it's pretty clear. Devin White, Nakobe Dean, Zach Bond, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Ben Van Sumeren.
Okay, so 5. Linebackers. Got it.
So, Oren Burks, at the start of this, I would have said was going to make the team, but I think Ben Van Sumeren is one of those guys where you can't cut him at this stage. He's earned it. And Orange can play, and he'll probably go somewhere else because he'll probably have other offers, but he wasn't healthy. So, he just got back. I don't see how you keep him, unfortunately. I'd like to keep him for special teams, but some of these things are difficult decisions, and, that's where we are.
13 players left. Yeah.
Black. I hope I'm still on because I had my computers just went black on me. Came back.
You're still up. You're good. Can you see me? Everything good?
Yeah, I'm good now.
Yeah, because I say your face is lit up again. It did go dark. Did go dark for a second there, Johnny Mac, on me. You went dark on me.
Yeah, for about 15 seconds. So I didn't know what was going on, if I was still on. But so you heard me, right? Linebackers 5.
Yep, I heard you.
Devin White, N'Kobe Dean, Zach Bond, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Ben Van Sumeren. And then, the mess of the secondary. That is probably the most difficult projection, mainly because of the safeties. I think the corners are pretty clear. And I got 6 corners making it. Darius Slay, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Kaylee Ringo, Isaiah Rogers, and I'm going Josh Jobe
Okay.
as 6th for special teams.
So
He's
Eli
already,
Ricks will be out. for
yeah.
practice.
I mean, he's a guy they might try to trade. Might get through waivers, and you can bring him back. But if you can get something for him, I think you should try to, because I don't know if he's ever going to be good enough in run support. He's good natural coverage guy, but I think the other aspects of the position, I don't know if he's improved as much. And Josh means so much to the, like, I'd rather have Ricks playing corner than Josh Jobe, but I think he means so much to the special teams.
Right.
And Eli's not really a good special teams player.
They got to throw Michael Clay a bone, right?
Yeah. So I think that I've gotten bitten by paying too much attention to special teams before, but I'm going to get bitten again because Josh Jobe should make this team. And then safety, I'm keeping 4, and I'm assuming Sidney Brown will start on the PUP list. So
that means you don't have to roster him, right? Yeah. So
yeah.
Okay.
So that'll take care of that. And as long as Bradbury's here, Howie's going to kick the can down the road. So until he gets rid of him, I got to keep him on there. So to me, it's CJ, Reed Blankenship, Bradbury, Avonte Maddox. I'm counting him at safety. And those are the guys. And then obviously the specialists are easy: Jake Elliott, Braden Mann, Rick Lovato. I believe that's 53.
That is 53. You're correct. That would be 53 if you have 6 corners, 4 safeties, and 3 special teamers. Yeah, that's 53. So we hit our 53. So it looks like Stearns would be out.
Well, he's not healthy. I mean, he can't play. I mean, why are you going to keep him on the roster?
Yeah, I don't know why they even brought him in. Tristan McCollum, as JM brings up, he would be out.
Very difficult. And my hope there would be they trade Bradbury and Tristan could make the team.
Right. That's what I was about to say. I mean, this is when Bradbury, if he's going to get moved, they'd have to move him now.
Yeah. Well, Howie's might kick it to the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Until it happens, I'm keeping him because he clearly doesn't want to cut him. But yeah, from my perspective, I would trade Bradbury and for whatever I can get and keep Tristan McCollum. But right now, I don't think that's an option until he actually makes a move with Bradbury.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing. So a couple guys I think that are out here that would be interesting. I mean, Joe Nada, who's had or Nagata, I don't know how to pronounce that. Is it Nada?
It's Nada.
Yeah,
I mean, look, Joe had a nice game in New England. Great guy, hard worker, back out there. Always the first guy on the practice field. If it's not him, it's Kenny Gainwell. But I mean, they're already keeping 2 guys they shouldn't keep at wide receiver. They can't keep a third, and they could get him through waivers and get him back on the practice squad. So hopefully he'll be there.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening with Nada and the other guy, the defensive tackle Thomas Booker, who's had a good camp. I thought
he's had a really good camp. Really good camp.
I don't see it with the numbers game for him. I don't see how he would sneak in.
Yeah, that's the problem. And my perspective, and maybe Vic thinks about it a little bit differently, and he really doesn't, want to keep a nose tackle, a guy who can play nose tackle as a backup to Jordan Davis. I think you're going to a real bad place if you do that. And they can probably, again, I think one of the most overrated things I talk about every year is waiver wire. Oh, you're going to lose this guy. No, you're not. The vast majority of guys are getting through. And
Yeah,
Thomas
remember,
Booker,
every team in the league is going to be putting these guys through waivers.
yeah,
So,
and Thomas Booker is likely to get through waivers, and you can handle it that way. 16-man practice squad now. So you got plenty of room on the practice squad, but he has had a good summer. And it wouldn't shock me if he makes the team by any stretch of the imagination, because he has played that well. But I don't think he's a great if he had to play nose tackle, he could do it, but I don't think it would be that good. So, and remember, he was on the practice squad last year. So for all these, you can't get him through, he was on the practice squad already. And I think they'll be able to get him through waivers.
all right, John, a couple exercises. One exercise really I want to do here. I think 9 offensive linemen seems light, right?
Yeah, it is.
Well,
light.
if they added one more, where are they taken away from?
Probably edge. Probably not keeping the 6th edge.
So Patrick Johnson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. See, that's where Howie's going to have to.
I mean, it should be. It should be receiver. But
yeah.
Howie's keeping it. Howie's keeping his draft picks. I mean,
what about corners? We need 6 corners. I mean, I guess we do.
Well, you can cut Job as well. Those. But I do think, roster building, I think, people are, well, you take the best player. No, you don't. You build the best team, and special teams is part of it. And you need guys who can excel on special teams. Whereas a 10th offensive lineman, things are going to have to go drastically bad for that guy to play at all. So remember that part of the equation.
Right.
Like, I would not keep Dylan McMahon. I think you can get him through waivers. I think you can put him on the practice squad.
No,
I would not keep.
I think somebody might. I just think people like the offensive lineman, especially from Philly.
Well, that's true. I mean, people do look at it and say, "Oh, we worked with Stoutland," but I will say
Stoutland
this.
probably also had a big say in drafting him in the 6th round.
Well, I would say this about waivers. Guys, teams have been working with their young players for the entire spring and summer, and they want to keep working with those guys. They don't want to pick up somebody from scratch from another organization that they got to start at square one. So when they do pick up people off waivers, it's generally players they liked in the draft and they wanted to draft, and they had a real love for them from that perspective, or they made a big splash play in the preseason like Eli Ricks last year.
Right.
Then people notice it and say, oh, he made a big play. And, you're a really bad team like Carolina. There's always one team that'll pick up like 5 people on waivers, which is the clearest indication that you stink, because you don't have players you even want to work with.
Yeah, right.
Young players. And generally the number is between 35 and 40 league wide. 1 per team essentially that gets picked up on waivers. And the Eagles have a good roster, so they might lose 2. They might even lose 3. But it's not going to be relevance that's going to shift your team's fortunes.
Yeah, that's going to shift your outlook on the team. I was going to say that. So, we'll see what ended up happening there. I think we hit on everything pretty good. The tight end is curious. Are they going to keep 3s? I think EJ would be the guy, but you had Uzama there you've said he hasn't had a great camp. That's why I kind of thought he'd be on the out, but I get the perspective from the blocking. So we'll see what they end up doing there. I'm going to go to our chat real quick. Just follow up. Yeah, JM says he liked Booker. I like Booker too. I think they try and get him on the roster, but we'll see where they end up going with him. You think he would clear waivers, John?
Yeah. I mean, he again, he was on the practice squad last year. Anybody could have signed him.
Yeah, I just think he looks solid in our games.
Well, he has. He's had a good summer. He's looked good in practice too. He's you know, he's a player you'd want to keep around. But for me, it comes down to needing a backup for Jordan Davis, and I think Marlon's better equipped to do that. Big might see it a little bit differently, and he mentioned you need to play multiple positions. And Marlon hasn't been spectacular by any stretch of the imagination, so it wouldn't stun me if Booker earned a job. And like I said, I certainly think the Eagles want to keep him around. If you cut Marlon, though, you probably cut Marlon, and he's probably not coming back. I think you can get Thomas Booker onto the practice squad.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing with that. Pretty good 53, though, John. I thought that was good stuff. I don't know how much it'll change for you when you do your official prediction before the beat reporter competition.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I want to talk myself into cutting McMahon and Smith. So I'm trying to talk myself because they don't deserve to make this team.
I know
based on
I haven't seen it, but based on the reports, it seems like you're right.
And that's you know, and I think you can get both of them on the practice squad. I really do. Now that might change if Benias, like, you know, returns a kickoff or a punt against Minnesota. Then I'm keeping them. I'm not even debating it.
Right.
You know, so
you almost don't want these guys to do anything in the preseason.
With McMahon, it's not that I dislike him or, you know, I think he's got, you know, long-term potential, but I think it's easy to get him on the practice squad. So, you know, then I can keep somebody I want to keep, like Kennard, specifically on the offensive line.
Kennard makes sense. I like the Tristan McCullum kid too. He showed up, you know, and when his number was
I like Tristan as well. And that to me has to do with to me, I'd like him to be the fourth safety, at least until Sidney gets healthy. And that to me, you would have to trade or release James Bradbury. Are they going to release him? I don't think so. They've taken it this far. I can't imagine how he just raises his arm and said, you know what? I'm going to cut him.
Yeah, I can't.
He's taken it this far, so I think he's going to take it all the way. And that means all the way to the trade deadline if he has to.
Yep, we'll see what they end up doing, John. Good breakdown of the 53. Any final comments on that initial projection before we get to our last commercial break?
Just that's what I think they're going to do. That's not what I would do at certain positions, as I mentioned with Tristan.
Next time we do this, we got to add in like the caveat, what you think they're going to do, what Johnny Mack would do. So people, I'd like to know what you would do.
Well, right off, I cut Dylan McMahon and Anais Smith and put them on the practice squad.
Yeah, right.
And you risk, I mean, like I said, if somebody liked Dylan McMahon in the draft, they might claim him. Somebody like probably a bunch of people like Anais in the draft, they might claim him. But I'll take that risk.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. So good stuff there, everybody. That's the 53-man projection after 15 days of training camp. Just one more practice, I guess, to go, right, for you guys. One more tomorrow. They canceled. Well, they didn't cancel Thursday. They made it a walkthrough, right? So what did Friday become now?
Friday's a walkthrough as well. They're doing two walkthroughs.
They just axed you guys. They're like, get out of here one day earlier.
Exactly. They're getting fed up with us seeing. We're still there every day, but
yeah, right.
We only get to see a smaller portion of practice.
Yeah.
And we don't get to see team drills, which is when they do all the good stuff. So, you know, that's when Vic will make his decision at linebacker.
Good stuff. We'll get to our next commercial break. Just 15 minutes to go, 17 minutes left to go here on Birds 365, our nightcap edition. We'll come back. We'll recap the day. We'll recap the 53. We'll recap everything we talked about, maybe talk some linebackers, some wide receiver 3, some guard, the 3 big positions that everybody's been talking about. And I would add corner into that as well. We'll get a little rookie update from John as well. Then we'll get out of here. And then tomorrow night, same time, we'll be on nightcap edition tomorrow night. I'll be live in the morning with football 24/7. I'll try and bring John in from the car like I usually do. But that'll be the schedule for today or for tomorrow's shows, and then obviously the National Football Show from 2 to 6 in his normal time slot. So stay tuned, everybody. Birds 365 will be right back on this Tuesday nightcap edition.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a nightcap edition of Birds 365. Final segment of the night. Just ran through our 53-man roster. Initial predictions, not our final predictions, but Johnny Mack gave his rundown on the 53. I thought that was pretty good stuff. And we recapped day 15 of practice. John, for those who missed our opening segment, for those who were not here at the Open, what were the key takeaways just from practice today to run it down one more time?
AJ Day is what I described it as. Big day for AJ Brown, which you could almost say every single day. Consistency is what probably is most impressive about AJ and his ability to go from practice to practice, even when you hear about the offense not having the best of days. He's usually making at least a few plays, and today was off the charts. Making a big catch down the field on Quinyon Mitchell, punting the football, which is the only thing he did poorly today as a celebration. middle of the field, intermediate. Great one-handed catch and one-on-ones, which was tremendous on Darius Slay with tight coverage. Just a great player. And, you think about those young defensive backs getting to go against A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith every single day. That's going to make them better. And, Quinyon, Britton Covey was talking about Quinyon, saying, he's got the mentality you need to be a cornerback, and that AJ might beat him 3 straight reps and he'll have good coverage on the 4th and he'll start talking trash. That's the way cornerbacks need to be. And that's going to be a positive for those guys as well. On the flip side, I think you've seen a step back by the backups, which I really think has to do with the offensive line. When the offensive line is healthy and everybody's out there, you tend to get good quality reps from the offense. And when you see some moving parts, it starts to get a little bit muddy. And that's kind of what's been going on. But it's funny. We start this whole process and we talk about this team, every weekday, for people that say, hey, you're not on during the weekend. Sometimes we are. But we talk about this team all the time, and where we started this whole process: strength, offensive line, defensive front. And that's where you are: strength, offensive line, defensive front. They got a lot of strengths on offense, but the biggest one remains offensive line.
Yeah, good stuff there. John, real quick, I want to ask about Quinyon today. I did see some reports or some tweets that, and you just kind of mentioned it, but he was jabbing a little bit with Devontae, going back and forth with Devontae. Take us inside. What did you see from those two battling today at practice?
Yeah, Quinyon's stealth. Everybody's talked about it. Very quiet, and all of a sudden he'll make a play and he'll say, trash route or, really talk back. So it's pretty funny, actually, because typically you're either one or the other. CJ is all over people, Gardner Johnson, and Quinyon does it stealthily. And I think that has more impact when the quiet guy starts talking up. But
it's like, what the hell did you just say to me?
Yeah. And those are great receivers, obviously. Who, let's be honest, they beat Quinyon Mitchell more than Quinyon Mitchell beats them. So if anybody thinks that's different, it's not. But same thing with Lane. That's why I'm not worried about it. Yeah.
I think it's tremendous, though, that we draft a guy, in the first round, and Quinyon Mitchell as a cornerback, and he just has the chance to learn against these type of receivers. Like, not every team has that, and I think it's going to help these guys a lot in their careers to be able to come in here in their first training camp.
I've seen it all the time. I talk about it all the time with Lane, and I talked about it. And Jordan Mailata will tell you this. One of the reasons he became Jordan Mailata is a guy everybody has forgotten, Joe Osman, who used to beat him like a drum in one-on-ones every day. But he got him better and better and better. And a lot of these guys, Jordan also talks about LaRaven Clark and what he's meant to his development as a veteran guy. He sort of taught him a bunch of tricks of the trade. If you go back to Stephen Means, was another guy that I remember that was back during the Doug Peterson era. And somebody had mentioned Stephen to me, and I remember bringing him up to Mike Rose, the offensive coordinator at the time. And I've never seen Mike Rose, very understated guy. His eyes lit up because he was just one of those guys who practiced so hard, made everybody better. But when you get to go against A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith every day, when you get to go up against, that's why I'm not worried about Bryce Huff. Everybody's worried about Bryce Huff, I feel, but me. when you get to go up against Lane Johnson every day,
Yeah, well, it's a good point,
then the game is easy. And that's sort of how it unfolds.
Yeah, and I don't think Bryce Huff was going up against those type of tackles in New York. I mean, was he going against Becton, Becton last year?
Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense. If you're going against the best players, it's rare that you're going to have to go against similar players in the games. Now, occasionally you'll get big time tackles that you have to deal with, and there's some great receivers in this league. But Quinyon Mitchell and Green Bay's got a bunch of them. They're not as good as AJ and Devontae, though. They got like 4, 5 young receivers who look like they could really be something, but they're not AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So they should be prepared to face what they're going to face.
Yeah, we'll see how it all works out. John, good show tonight on the 53 on the practice today. And I'm happy to hear about Quinyon Mitchell because I felt like we started off camp real hot with him, and it's not simmered, but it simmered a little bit just in that he wasn't the top.
Well, it simmers because he's getting beaten by AJ Brown. But again, I mean, there's context. There's always context to these reps, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, all right, he got beat by AJ Brown. Shouldn't he?
Yeah, right. What about Cooper DeJean, John? He was back out there, and you guys say he didn't have a good day today. Give the update for the people that missed the Open on what we saw from Cooper today.
He did not. I think, again, and we brought it up, and we had a super chat earlier. People have these projections about Cooper DeJean that are not based in reality. So they're complete, and by that I mean, look. He's never played slot corner, never mind safety. And people assume, all right, he can play slot corner and he can play safety. Why? I mean, they have to ask themselves that question. It's not from watching him play at Iowa because he didn't play there. So it could be from somebody else projecting him. And there's projections all the time in the NFL. I mean, Steen was a tackle in college. I talk about it all the time. He played 4 years at Vanderbilt at right tackle, and he played a 5th year at Alabama at left tackle. He never played guard, but everybody in the NFL projected him to a guard because he had short arms. And typically to play in the NFL, to succeed in the NFL, you need longer arms than Tyler Steen has. Maybe that's the case. Typically that's the case. But he certainly seems more comfortable at tackle. And why wouldn't he be? And we'll see how his career shakes out. In the case of Cooper, though, the Eagles scouted him as an outside corner and believe he can play outside corner. Now, this year, they want him to start inside. And we'll see if he can get there. But he's got to learn a completely new position for him.
How bad was it today when he was getting burnt?
It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
Like enough to concern you, or just like, oh, he's not at the speed?
Well, it was the short area quickness guys. So it was Cubby, it was Devontae, and a little bit of Anias. So that's the guys he's going to struggle with. And things are shifting a little bit in the NFL where you have bigger guys in the slot. And I don't think he'll struggle with those guys. I think he was going to struggle with the short area quickness guys. He's just not used to it. He's got the athletic ability to do it, but he's just not used to it. Those guys are, I mean, they cut on a dime. They just, it's amazing to see. You talk about, everybody knows how good Devontae is as a route runner because they get to see it all the time. I don't think people realize how good Britton Covey is as a route runner because they've never got to see it. But in practice, like he's been killing everybody. not just Cooper. And it's because of that, not only, and he was talking about it for a long time today, is, understanding angles, understanding leverage, understanding the coverage, what they're doing inside shade. Do they have help from the safety? Slot is a bunch of option routes. So you have the option, if you have the chemistry with the quarterback, to essentially, have a 4-way go. And that is very, very difficult to cover, especially for somebody who's never played the position before.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac, tonight. Appreciate you being here on this late show. I know it's a long work day for you, getting down at the NovaCare complex early. Appreciate all of our viewers today. The best viewers on YouTube, I often say. So we appreciate all you guys, everybody in the chat. Jay Koch is in here. Twiz the Jig is Steve Ike. What's up, Steve? Crowley, JM is in here. Appreciate you, JM. Anybody else I missed? Twiz the Jig is in here. Crowley, Brian Kresnick, all of our main. Abe is in here. Everybody, we appreciate all of you guys for being here. Make sure you hit that like button on your way out. Show Johnny Mac some love for a long work day today. Johnny Mac, same schedule tomorrow, my man, right? You heading down there in the morning?
Yeah, hopefully.
And who's speaking before practice?
Nick Sirianni, last one before the game on Saturday. Michael Clay will talk as well after practice.
You ever struggled to listen to Nick talk and his run-on sentences?
No, I like Nick. Nick's fine.
You like Nick? I can't. Yeah. I like Nick. I don't have a problem with Nick, but sometimes I can't listen to him because I'm just like, I can just read the.
Sometimes I get annoyed with the connection stuff and that kind of stuff. Or if you bring up Larry, never bring up Larry Karras because he's going to go on for six hours. But I think it's interesting when he gets passionate about a subject. I always like that with coaches. And they give you a little bit more. It's generally, I always tell people, I don't like to talk about players because you're never going to get good answers with players. How's Cooper doing? Oh, he's doing great. Right. And you're going to get blah, blah, blah. But if you ask them about, more esoteric subjects, if you ask them broad subjects, like today I was trying to get Kellen, who doesn't talk at all, but I was trying to get him to talk about.
Yeah, he's political as it gets.
Yeah, I was trying to get him to talk about the fact that Vic said, "Hey, I don't give a shit about the offense," and I try to work it that way. And earlier, I asked Nick about the reps conversation when everybody was asking about Tanner McKee and Kenny Pickett. You're going to go, "Oh, Kenny's doing great. Tanner's doing great." I was trying to ask him about evaluating reps and try to get a deeper, more layered answer. He knows what I was trying to get to, but sometimes they get into the passion of it and you get some good answers. So that's what I generally try to do. Now, sometimes you have to ask about players to get them on the record, but you're always going to get that, oh, he's doing great, or this and that, and you're not going to get very far. So Bill Belichick's the best example. I know we got to go, but
Andy Reid. It reminds me of Andy Reid, John.
Yeah, if you get Bill going about the history of football, or like he went off for 15 minutes about long snappers once, because it's a passionate subject of his. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get him to talk in an honest and.
Yeah, Kellen doesn't seem as comfortable with you guys yet. Vic does. Vic is kind of relaxed.
Yeah. Well,
That's just Vic, I know, but Kellen seems like he's
basically Kellen's very political. You're right. He's very political. Hopefully, Shane was like that. Shane Steichen was like that.
Right.
But Shane was great behind the scenes. Shane knew his role. He was the offensive coordinator of an offensive head coach. He wasn't in charge of the offense, so he didn't want to say anything on camera. But behind the scenes, he was phenomenal.
I know we got to run, but when you say phenomenal, what do you mean? Like he gave you just insights into his offense and what he was thinking?
Left and right, and explaining things and what happened in games, and why the Eagles did certain things in certain situations. And, it's all off the record, so you can't talk about it, but it gives you a better framework to explain what's going on in your own work as a reporter or writer, or in my case, both, talk show, straddle that fence. It gives you a better background, and you're able to speak more intelligently on the team because you know why they're doing certain things and making certain decisions.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, Johnny Mac, good show, man. Be safe tonight. Get some rest. Get down there safely tomorrow, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night on the Nightcap edition of Birds 365 tomorrow night from 6 to 8 p.m. All right, brother?
All right, sounds good. Thanks for hopping in late to everybody.
All right, everybody. We will catch you tomorrow, and then in the morning I'll be live with Football 24/7. I'll get John up for 10 or so minutes, but appreciate everybody being here. Catch you tomorrow, everybody, on JAKIB Sports. Hit that like button on your way out.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.